Time Capsule News. My name is Daniel Kester, and I'll be narrating this series as we explore history through its original print. In the first episode, we explored the USA Today article from September 12th, 2001. And today, we will continue that theme, but from a different viewpoint. Today's article from September 12th, 2001 is from the Baltimore Sun, Section C, Sports. Baseball puts down balls, bats. C-League postpones games in wake of tragedy. A first since 44 D-Day. Safety. Morning cited. Angelo's supportive. Delay may be days. By Peter Schmuck and Joe Strauss, Sun staff. Camden Yards was dark last night. So were all the other Major League ballparks in the aftermath of yesterday's horrific terrorist attack. Baseball Commissioner Bud Selig ordered the postponement of all 15 scheduled games, both for reasons of public safety and out of respect for the victims of the coordinated assault on 4 airliners, the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. It was the first time in 57 years that a slate of regular season games was postponed for reasons other than labor unrest. In the interest of security and out of a sense of deep mourning for the national tragedy that has occurred today, all Major League Baseball games for today have been canceled, Bud Selig said in a statement released soon after the attack. The last time the majors called off a day of the regular season in the wake of a huge historical event was on June 6th, 1944, D-Day, when Allied troops invaded France and turned the tide of World War II. The schedule was also interrupted for one day on August 2nd, 1923, after the death of President Warren G. Harding, and the exhibition schedule was canceled on April 14th, 1945, 2 days after the death of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. The baseball schedule also has been affected twice for lengthier periods. The 1918 season was cut short by a month during World War I by order of the U.S. War Department. And the 1980 and 1989 Bay Bridge World Series was interrupted for 12 days after a major earthquake in the San Francisco Bay Area. Quote, "It's a horrible tragedy for our country," unquote, Orioles majority owner Peter Angelo said. Certainly the cancellation of the baseball schedule was in order. That's the appropriate move to make on this very tragic day. The Orioles were scheduled to begin a 6-day, 7-game homestand at Oriole Park last night, with a game against the Toronto Blue Jays. No decision has been made on Tuesday's Major League schedule, but Selig hinted that the season could be interrupted for several days. He also postponed a quarterly owners' meeting scheduled to begin yesterday in Milwaukee. Quote, I will continue to monitor the situation on a daily basis and make ongoing decisions accordingly, unquote, Selig said. My deepest sympathy and prayers go out to the families and victims of this horrendous series of events. Orioles officials said they had no idea when games may resume, and unlike the Howard Street Tunnel train derailment in July that forced rescheduling of 3 games, there was no press for a decision given the magnitude of yesterday's tragedy. Quote, it's such an enormous catastrophe, Angelos said, unquote, trying to estimate how much time should elapse before everyone attempts to return to normal is almost impossible. It's so fresh. Baseball officials, as well as those of other high-profile professional and college sports, have to consider the wisdom of reopening stadiums to thousands of fans so soon after a terrorist attack that clearly was intended to exact the highest possible human toll. Quote, whenever it's deemed safe to hold large public gatherings again, we'll resume. But I'm sure we won't do it until then, unquote, Atlanta Braves president Stan Kasten said. Yankee Stadium, located about 10 miles from the World Trade Center, was evacuated within 90 minutes of yesterday's attack. Club officials were sent home, and security was beefed up around the historic ballpark, which is one of the most recognizable symbols of America's national pastime. Baseball sources indicated yesterday that certain franchises, especially those in New York, may experience more postponements than others. Orioles chief operating officer, Joe Foss, said he had no idea whether Camden Yards' proximity to Washington might create potential for longer delay for the Orioles than other teams. Angelos and Foss learned of the disaster while driving to Dulles International Airport to catch an 11:45 a.m. flight to Milwaukee, where the owners' meeting was scheduled to begin yesterday afternoon. Shortly after hearing a commercial jet that had taken off from Dulles had slammed into the Pentagon, Foss and Angelos could see smoke rising from the south. Quote, it was a little bizarre, unquote, Foss said. The Orioles closed their warehouse's offices shortly after being notified by the commissioner's office of last night's postponement. Quote, I think right now everybody is reacting to the unfortunate tragedy that is affecting the country, unquote, Foss said. It comes at an incredible time. We were told to cancel games today and play it on a day-to-day basis. My response would be to assess where the country is before Major League Baseball tries to determine what individual clubs are going to do. We have to wait until the President of the United States indicates that the country is safe and secure before baseball resumes. I know Commissioner Selig will act appropriately. Baseball is a recreation and entertainment for people. There's a time and a place for that. As of yesterday, the commissioner's office had classified the games as postponed, an event that would be rescheduled rather than canceled, according to Foss. Attempts by the Orioles to reach Major League Baseball officials at the New York offices were fruitless. Communication was further complicated by many central offices being en route to Milwaukee for the meetings. Quote, this whole day has been indescribable, Foss said. You think, what could happen to you personally? And thank the good Lord you didn't experience personal tragedy. You can't help but pray for those who lost their lives and were affected personally. Our situation is an extraordinary minor compared to those people, unquote. The regular season already is over in the minor leagues, but Mike Moore, president of the National Association of Professional Baseball Leagues, announced yesterday that each of the 9 leagues sanctioned by the NAPBL had postponed yesterday's playoff games. Quote, out of respect to the families and friends of those who lost their lives or were injured in today's tragic events, we have postponed all playoff games scheduled for tonight in the United States. Unquote, Moore said. The Associated Press contributed to this article. Looking at the standings, on September 12th, 2001, New York was 29 games over 500 and leading the Eastern Division. Pretty much running away with it, with Boston in second place. Cleveland was 20 games over 500 and had a fair lead over Minnesota of 6 games. In the West of the AL, Seattle was having an incredible year. A staggering 64 games over 500 and a .722 winning average. In second place was Oakland. Believe it or not, they had the second best record in baseball at 30 games over 500 and yet were a staggering 17 games behind. In the National League, Atlanta was 14 games over 500 and leading the East. Over Philadelphia by about 3.5 games. In the Central, Houston was 25 games over 500 with a modest lead of 5 games over St. Louis. And in the West, Arizona was 19 games over 500 with a slim 1.5 game lead over San Francisco. Thanks for joining us on Time Capsule News. We'll see you again.